What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. And in this one, I am breaking down a conversation between Andrew Tate and David Sutcliffe. I think this was a fantastic interview. If you're trying to develop your mindset, if you want to learn about the power of your thoughts to shape your reality, I think that Tate does a great job here explaining how he himself does it. And so I'm going to break that down. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Ruiz. You can find out more about me at thesovereignmindset.com. But in this interview here, Tate talks about how he doesn't get depressed because he doesn't believe in depression. And I think it's a great way to highlight just how powerful our mindset can be and how adopting the right thoughts can really dictate our success in life. Now, I don't want to say it can manifest your reality, but there is a significant amount of power in your thoughts. And yes, it can go even to the biological level. We all know about the placebo effect, right? Where this is that you imagine that something benign is having a positive effect on your body and your body responds to that, right? And this is kind of what I'm talking about here with the power of your thoughts. Now, I'm going to play this interview. This is going to be a breakdown as well as a reaction video. But I'm going to add my own commentary. I'm going to add my own insight. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into this video commentary here between David Sutcliffe and Andrew Tate. And then I'll break it down wherever I find necessary to provide you with additional insight or just expand on some ideas. So let's break this down right now. Let's listen to it. Here we go.
I'm going to try to reveal to you.
I know everything about myself, my friend.
You know everything about yourself.
I believe that I have a intimate grasp of all the things about myself which matter, which allow me to compete.
Right.
So there may be things I don't know, but I'm not sure if I particularly need them. So I'm not that interested.
Right. What's useful is more important than what's true.
Absolutely.
Right. And you've developed a framework of thinking about yourself and thinking about reality that's been incredibly effective for you.
Completely.
Right.
What's useful is more, you nailed it. What's useful is more important than what's true. This is an old argument of mine, but I think we discussed it in the last podcast, and I'll say it again. When I say I don't believe in depression, nobody can convince me to believe in depression. That's not a matter of discussing whether depression is real or not. That's a matter of me accepting that my mental model for going through life is more effective if I don't believe I can become a depressed person. Yeah. I don't believe in depression, so I can't be depressed, so that allows me to be more effective. It's not a matter of sitting there going, well, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I don't believe in it, so I can't catch it.
You shape your own reality through the conviction of your thoughts, your beliefs, and the words that you use.
Why else would you adopt any kind of mindset unless it's designed specifically to make you competitive and make you win? You install the software in your mind, right? So if I'm going to install software in my mind.
Did you install it?
Well, I've tried very hard to create it.
Right. Because.
All right. So I want to stop it right there and just break down a few things that he said. So number one, what's useful is more important than what's true. And I think that this is a very powerful concept to understand, especially when dealing with your thoughts and, wanting to go after your goals, wanting to transform your life. There is this aspect where you almost have to believe the unbelievable. But if you turn those thoughts into your reality, if that is what you believe, right? So for instance, I'll give you an example. Atheism, right? Now, imagine going through life believing that there is no God, there is no one out there helping you, that everything is in the material world and your circumstances are just what it is. There is no supernatural force out there trying to help you out. Now compare that to someone who believes in God, right? Who believes that God is on his side, that God wants him to triumph, that God wants him to exert his will, right? So he can exalt and honor God. And so God will help him see, God will be there to help him see the challenges through. Imagine those two different mindsets. Even if you don't believe in God, it makes more practical sense just to believe in God. And I think Andrew Tate has made this point before, right? And so that's kind of what I mean by, or I think that's what they mean by what's useful is more important than what's true. Although I do believe in God, I do believe he is true, right? But it's just an example that I can think of off the top of my head that illustrates this point, right? Sometimes, again, the power to believe a thought that doesn't necessarily reveal itself in the material world, right? It can be helpful just to live your life based on that thought being an actuality, being true, right? Because you operate throughout your life with a different energy level than if you believed the opposing thought, which could be something that's negative, that's holding you back. People who have illness, for instance, right? Some of them choose not to believe in that illness, right? And like, this is what Tate is saying. Why am I going to believe that depression is real, right? Because it's a thought that doesn't serve me. It's a thought that doesn't work for me, right? I need to be competitive and I need to win in this world. So the idea that depression is real, I'm not even going to think that. Even if there is, evidence that it is real, it doesn't serve me to think that way. So I'm just going to discard it. And I think there's power in that. Now, there's another thing that Tate brings up here, and that's that mindset is like software programming. And this is a huge mental shift that you can make, right? Because there's so many people that have been programmed with a fixed mindset, meaning they are who they are and there's nothing really they can do to change that. But if you think of your mindset as programming and software, you can uninstall and install new software to have you operating at a different frequency, a different level, a different capacity. And that mindset shift is big. It's a big mindset shift. Like, that allows you to navigate life on a whole different level, on a whole different operational level than previously, than a fixed mindset would, And so I think that if you can adopt that, kind of those two fundamental beliefs there that I just covered, it's a very powerful way to start the transformation process, and have you operating just on a different plane. So let's continue on with this interview here.
Wasn't it installed by your upbringing? Wasn't it installed by your mother and your father in some way?
Good question.
Before you were conscious, while you were just a developing child, like something got programmed into your psyche that has to have an impact on you. And those things can't necessarily be known because you were at such a young age.
Absolutely. We're all programmed to some degree. I agree with you on this so far. I don't think anybody can escape programming, whether it's society, whether it's a television show, whether it's the people around you, peer pressure, whether it's a religion. We're all programmed to some degree. That's absolutely not really true. What I have done, and what I think most people do not do, is heavily analyze why I hold the beliefs I hold, why they help me. If I don't hold the belief personally, or if I didn't learn it from personal experience, I know where it came from, who tried to teach me that, whether their intentions for me were good or bad. And I've tried very hard to have my mindset rigidly analyzed and make sure that it's put together in a way which benefits me completely and absolutely. And I do not believe in things that take away power from me. Right. I refuse to do that. I would rather say that they are not real. And people will sit here and argue to the end of time that they are real, but they're not real in my world. And I live inside of my mind. So even if you throw me in a Romanian dungeon, the idea that I become a depressed person is not a framework that my mind works within, so I can't become depressed. I can feel a little bit sad, sure, I can feel depressed, but I can't be depressed. They're very different things. So,
all right, cool. So I want to stop it right here, and I want to talk about a very interesting concept that Andrew Tate just brought up. And it starts with acknowledging that external influences have programmed your mindset. All right. I think that we all need to understand that to some degree, well, actually to a large degree, we have been programmed by society. We have been programmed by school. We have been programmed by our parents, by religion, by culture, right? There's all these external influences that have influenced us, right? That have to somehow or to some degree programmed us with ideas and beliefs. And once we recognize that, right, that's the first step. It's becoming self-aware of that, hey, yeah, I have been influenced by all these external forces. Now, the second thing that you can do is start to analyze the ideas which you've kind of adopted without questioning, without doing any audit of whether these ideas serve you. And look, I grew up in the public school system here in Miami, and I can tell you this, that you are programmed with self-limiting beliefs, right? You are programmed to follow, right, the system, to be a good student, to not think outside the box, to follow the program, to get a 9-to-5, to work for a corporation, to slave away for 45 years and then get your social security and your retirement at the end of it, and you're told that you'll find fulfillment in this, right? So this is absolutely the programming that you receive going through the school system. You're not taught to be an entrepreneur, to think outside the box, to question mainstream narratives at all. So once you realize this, right, now what you can do, and Tate talks about this here in this, is analyze and audit your beliefs and see if they're in alignment with your authentic self. See if they're in alignment with your values, your goals, your principles, right? And it's not an easy task. It's not like you can sit down and do this like you do your taxes or do your finances, right? It takes a lot of work and it takes time, and you have to be able to conjure up the self-awareness to recognize when these innate, programmed, almost unconscious beliefs pop up, right? And bring the unconscious to the conscious realm and then audit it there on the spot. And it just takes practice and time and repetition, but eventually you can start to pinpoint your internal monologue and start to dictate what fits your needs and what should be discarded. So, and then the third step is just to, repeat that process over and over and over again until you have restructured your mindset. You have rewired the way you think, and you've rewired it in a way that is more contoured to who you are and what suits your needs. And that's kind of the crux of the sovereign mindset, the company that I'm trying to develop here. So with that said, let's finish, or let's continue on with the interview.
That's just the mindset I've installed, and it's allowed me to be competitive. And I believe, personally, my personal beliefs are that life as a man is hyper competitive, and whatever software you have in your mind should be designed to make you as competitive as possible, and you shouldn't be believing in absolutely anything else. So I've tried very hard to make sure all of my worldviews and all of my experiences and everything is curated and aimed in a direction which is going to allow me to be a fearsome competitor in all realms of human endeavor.
Have there been some of your beliefs or convictions that have been challenged through the experiences that you've had, particularly in the recently?
Well, people challenge me often. And what a lot of people don't understand is that I will never adopt the thinking of somebody who is sad, and I will never adopt the thinking of somebody who is less competitive than I am or less successful than I am. If someone comes along and goes, Andrew, you are wrong, the way you see the world is wrong, but they are suffering from an affliction, why would I adopt a single iota of what they say? So it's kind of funny when I talk about depression, the number of people who defend depression. Depression's ruined my life, it's super real, and I lost my wife and my life is over and I want to kill myself, it's real. I'm like, surely you should like my worldview. If depression's so terrible and it's destroyed your entire existence, you should be listening to me tell you it's not real. But instead they're defending it and sticking up for it, which I find very interesting. So that's the first thing. In regards to whether I have had any of my convictions challenged.
All right, so I want to stop it right here because Tate brings up a really interesting point, and that is that, when he tries to tell people that depression doesn't exist and that you have power to control that thought, you have power over your mood and how you feel, people fight him on that, right? People get upset with him for even suggesting that. And I think that's a really good example of what happens when you try to break people out of their programming. There's this scene in The Matrix where Morpheus is walking with Neo and they're walking through a crowd. It's the scene with the woman and the red dress. You might be familiar with it. But in that scene, he's explaining to Neo that people are so enamored and so ingrained in their programming that they will fight to the death to maintain it, right? To maintain their illusions, to maintain their comfort zone, to maintain their existing paradigm. And I think it's because once you recognize that you have power over your life, that you have, just the ability to dictate the direction in which your life goes, there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with that. And all of a sudden, right, you're left with this realization that you have more potential to tap into, right? More control over your life that you didn't think that was there. And again, that brings up this obligation that you now have to tap into that potential or to change your circumstances or to transform your life. And that takes work, and that's work that people resist, right? And so people will fight you when you try to reveal that they have power and control and responsibility over their life. And so I think that's a really good point that Tate brought up here. And yeah, so let's continue on with the interview.
It's kind of amazing. Maybe it's just a semantics trick, and maybe it's that simple. Maybe it's as simple as saying, I feel a little bit depressed today, but I am not a depressed person, and I cannot become depressive. I'm not going to have depression. Maybe it's just a semantics trick, and by saying that alone, I understand that it's a temporary state of mind, which I can alter and I can affect. And I've never struggled with long-term depression or long-term negative thoughts because I don't believe in that mental model. I think that your mind, like I said, it's software, it's programmed in, and they say inside the Matrix or in every single video game, there are boundaries and there are limits. There are certain things you can and can't do. And I don't believe my mind can be put in a state of permanent negativity. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's possible. So,
all right, yeah. So that concludes the video or the clip that I wanted to highlight. It's a fantastic interview. I highly recommend you check it out. You know, the thing about Andrew Tate, he's a polarizing figure, but I think that someone like Andrew Tate, who's extraordinary, has a remarkable ability to communicate his ideas and get them across in such a concise fashion that, you know, you got to really take the meat and leave the bones. If you don't like certain aspects of Andrew Tate, that's fine. But to deny that he doesn't provide valuable insight, which we can all learn from, I think does yourself a great injustice, right? And it goes with anyone out there. You know, no one's going to be perfect. Everyone's going to have their flaws. Everyone's going to have their issues that they're dealing with. But, you know, for remarkable people who have shown that they can provide value, it might be worth it to listen to them, even if you don't particularly care for their character, right? Or if you don't particularly agree with everything they say, right? There's still a lot that you can take away. But yeah, this is a very powerful interview on the ability for you yourself to shape your mindset in a way that actually does you a service. There's a lot of work that goes to that. I'm sure this is something that Andrew Tate has been practicing for a long time, and he's gotten to like master level. But it can be done. I've done it myself. I know other people have done it as well. And so I want to encourage all of you guys to start that journey. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.